here in Zone 8A in North Alabama. It's early spring. The cherries are beginning to bloom. The grass is starting to green up. The snowball viburnums here behind me are budded up, ready to flower. We're ready to start working in the yard again, and that's great. However, there's some do's and don'ts that I want to share with you in terms of what to do with your zoysia grass, and the same things apply to Bermuda grass as well. Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Warren, and you're watching The Plant Doctor. Let's get started. The first thing I want to share with you is when your grass hits this stage of green up here. So today is March the 15th and the grass is really starting to green up. We hit 80 yesterday. We've had several days in the 70s. Do not scalp the grass when it gets to this stage of green up. If you haven't scalped already, it's probably too late. Scalping is where we cut really, really low to get the thatch and all the dead stuff off the ground to let the grass be able to grow and green in a little bit quicker. We're letting sunlight get directly down onto the ground, warming the ground up and making green up happen a little bit quicker. If you haven't scalped, don't worry about scalping this year. If your grass is at this stage of green up, like you see here behind us, it's a little too late. You don't want to cut off all the new green tender vegetation. These leaf blades that are showing up in this grass here, they are creating sugars for the roots and trying to promote new growth, and we don't want to start the spring off on the wrong foot by cutting off all the new growth on this grass. Another don't for you is don't put down any 2,4-D on Zoysia and Bermuda during the green up period. So it's not necessarily going to kill your grass, but it's going to burn it back severely, and you may not have a green yard until mid-June to maybe the 4th of July. And that's something that I don't want to see happen to your yard, is for your grass is coming in really, really nice. It's green, it's looking like what we have here behind us, and you go in, you maybe got some clover or some henbit popping up, and almost spray that, and then you get these little circles of dead all in the yard. Your yard's gonna look like a polka dot pattern where you sprayed all these different weeds during the green up. Once it's greened in completely, say around the first part of May, you can probably go in and start to spot spray. But right now, anything with 2,4-D in it, do not spray. A lot of our Trimec products or three-way products are going to have 2,4-D in them. So make sure you read that analysis label on your chemicals before you go out and spray. A lot of times the chemicals that we see at Lowe's and Home Depot, they have this beautiful advertisement all over the front. It's marketing. What I want you to do is go down to the bottom, read what is in that label. If 2,4-D is in there, don't spray it on Zoysia or Bermuda this time of year, because it runs the potential of damaging the yard. One thing I do want to see you do on Zoysia and Bermuda yards this time of year, when we hit this stage of green up, go ahead and apply a slow release fertilizer, a 90-day prill, 120-day prill, and start to let those nutrients get into the soil to feed your grass. You don't want to put those down in February. You don't want to push growth too early, but now that we're approaching mid-March and we're getting into April, you can go ahead and put down some fertilizers. As long as it's slow release, I wouldn't put down a quick release fertilizer where you're just pumping a ton of nitrogen into the ground at once. The slow release prills, most of them operate on heat. So the warmer it gets, the more nutrients they're going to release. And if we have a cold spell, they're not going to release as much nutrients. So you're not going to be pushing just a ton of growth, and then we get that late frost or freeze and it burns it all back. We're very slowly starting to add some nitrogen, some phosphorus, some potassium into the soil in the hopes that we're going to get a nice, even, uniform green up on the lawn and get off to a great start. If you're having issues with compacted soils like I have here behind me, if you're having some drainage issues with some standing water, one thing you can do right this time of year is to go in and do a core aeration. So aeration is where we poke little holes in the ground, and that is going to allow moisture to get down into the ground instead of running over the top of the ground. And also, if you've got compaction like we have here, it's going to open up pore space in the ground, and that ground will be less compacted. So if you need to do a core aeration, now is the time to do it. One thing you need to do is keep an eye out for funguses this time of year. We've had a lot of rain in my area here in North Alabama over the past 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know if you can hear that right there is water that has not gone into the ground. This ground is saturated, and I'm going to be watching for things like fairy ring and dollar spot on this zoysia lawn here. I have not had an issue with it in the past, but if I ever am going to have an issue with it, it is going to be in the early spring when we have a lot of rain. So dollar spot looks like little circles about the size of a silver dollar. And they'll usually be clustered in groups of a few dozen in and around certain areas. And then fairy ring, it'll be one big giant circle of dormant or dead looking grass. And in the middle, it'll be green. It almost looks like a donut in the yard. And so if you start seeing that, you may need to look into put down some fungicides on the yard to control that. If you're not getting a whole lot of rain in your area, I don't think you're going to have to worry about it. The two things that really lead on to having issues with dollar spot or fairy ring is, like I mentioned, a lot of rain, but also if you've got heavy thatch in the yard. So that process of decomposition, all that thatch in the yard with a lot of moisture creates the ideal environment for funguses to start growing in the yard. So keep an eye out for dollar spot and fairy ring. It's vitally important that we do things right early in the spring to set ourselves up for success in late spring and into summer so that you can have a beautiful lawn for your family to enjoy. I hope these tips help you with your Zoysia and Bermuda lawns this summer. And guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor. And until next time, happy gardening.